Bill. I appreciate being invited to be here, and welcome guests and veterans to the Military Veterans Museum. Our purpose here, our mission, if you will, is to preserve military veterans' history through education and restoration. The education part is very simple. That's what we're doing here today. That's what we do every day when the front doors open up and our docents give tour guides or self-tour guide too. So the education part is very essential to us. We spend a lot of time developing signs that tell visitors exactly what the exhibit is about. The restoration part of our mission is quite complicated. I came in here in 2014 and basically I never left. President of the museum at that time was Dave Kirsten. He showed some interest in my story, and after a while he seemed to be extremely interested, and he said, if you bring me a truck, a 5-ton cargo, I will build a replica of Brutus. Well, he said that, and I said, done. We found a truck about a year later, shipped it in from Tacoma, Washington, set to work. All the volunteers here are dedicated and extremely talented in all mechanics, in welding, in painting, and even some are on the board of directorship, so they're talented in administrative areas too. We have a picture on the wall behind Brutus there of the restoration project. It was complicated. We tore the truck all the way down to the bare bones, basically, reassembled it, painted it, and then started building the gun truck. It was a one-of-a-kind truck. All gun trucks in Vietnam were one-of-a-kind. They were made by the guys that manned them, because the Army didn't have a clue what they were doing as far as transportation was concerned in Vietnam. And the story of the gun truck basically begins a year before I got to Vietnam. On September 2nd, 1967, a convoy left Quy Nhon on QL-19, a road that we rode on every day when I was there for 14 months. It was a dangerous road, not only because it had very dangerous and very rough roads. The terrain was up and down. There's 2 mountain passes on it that sometimes the tankers that I drove for many months that you drove past when you came into the driveway, they were overloaded and underpowered. Our trips up the Main Pass, to be exact, were probably about 3.5 miles an hour. Now we had 5,000 gallons of fuel, going 3.5 miles an hour with mountains all around us. That was not considered a safe place to be, but we did it every day, and we felt very confident that our gun trucks would protect us from enemy attacks. On September 2nd, 1967, the convoy left Quy Nhon, was promptly attacked by the enemy, and they were undergunned, no armor on them. They lost 7 drivers killed, 17 wounded, and lost 31 trucks. Fast forward a year to September 1968, I arrived in Vietnam, and the process of building gun trucks had already started. Guys were grabbing scrap metal from wherever they could, doing the best they could to mount on trucks like that one without the gun on it, loose and a half, and everything was kind of helter-skelter. The gun trucks were called hillbilly armored trucks because nobody did the same job the same way. When I got to Vietnam, I was in a replacement depot. The first truck in the 359 that I drove rode on was their 2.5-ton hillbilly armored gun truck from the 1st Platoon. That vehicle was driven by Jim Bird. He would prove to be my mentor, my teacher, and a hero. Jim was renowned for saving guys whose trucks were disabled during enemy action. One guy in particular, hit a mine, his truck was disabled, he was unconscious. The tanker caught on fire. Jim raced to his cab, pulled him out, put him in his gun truck, and drove to a safe area. Another time, that same driver took a mortar round in front of his tanker. He was also knocked unconscious again, and Jim got him out of there, drove him to a safe area. Gun truck drivers were the guys that ran from their trucks to the disabled trucks to help the disabled drivers. Luckily for me, when I drove Brutus, anytime there was a disabled truck, I got out and started running to save the driver, and the driver passed me up on my way there. So it was, I was really grateful that none of the guys were hurt, even though their trucks were destroyed. And that is one of my favorite stories because it is somewhat funny. But anyway, the 359 had Jim Bird and Wayne Prescott. They were all E4 soldiers, and they were innovative. They were very concerned about their job. They wanted to improve their ability to protect convoys. And unbeknownst to us, they came off after convoy duties every day, disappeared at night, and then reappeared when it was time to get back on the trucks and go on the convoy again. These two guys later pulled a gun truck, a brand new gun truck, into the company area. It didn't have any names on it, like most gun trucks did in Vietnam when I was there. But it was Brutus, 5-ton cargo, double-walled armor, and we still had two M16s on it, M60s, excuse me, like this one here. They were very adequate for infantry units, but could not measure up to the enemy and what we were facing. So when they got the truck built, they started scrounging for bigger, better weaponry. It took about 3 months, but they came up with two M50 caliber machine guns. We were now in a position to take on the enemy head on. The name of the truck, Mr. Bird, who I bunked a few bunks down from, told me he was going to take it downtown to the Vietnamese painter, assignment. He came back with the name Brutus on the side, and I said, well, that's a kind of a strange name. Where did you get that from? He says, I watched the Popeye cartoon show when I was a kid. And Brutus was the biggest, baddest dude on it, and I want to portray that to the enemy. And that he did. After the September 2nd, 67 ambush came the Tet Offensive. Now, most of the VC NVA forces in South Vietnam were decimated during that time period. They attacked every provincial capital all at the same time on the same day, and their plan was to get the civilian population to revolt against the present government and the U.S. Army that was occupying the country. The plan did not work. They wound up getting decimated all over the country, and I was very thankful for that because I got there 8 months later, and reaped the benefits of that. The action that I encountered while I was a tanker driver was minimal. It was sniper fire, it was mines in the road, and on occasion when we crossed the bridge, they would mortar the bridge defensive situation, hoping to get the convoy to block the road and all that other good stuff. So we still had some intense moments dealing with the enemy, but it was a lot better than it could have been without the Tet Offensive and how they really moved up. So then Brutus and Scott Prescott, Wayne Prescott, kept on scrounging day and night when the convoy was unloading or refueling. The gun truck guys were basically waiting for everybody to come back to the staging area. Very shortly, he showed up one day carrying a minigun. I said, "Where did you get that from?" He said, "My business." And obviously, the scroungers were experts at trading for items, bartering for items, and stealing items from other units that had a surplus on them. So all of a sudden, Brutus had a minigun. And the minigun was an awesome, awesome weapon. Wayne Prescott not only scrounged the equipment to build the truck, he scrounged the weapons and became proficient in their operation. I progressed through the ranks from a privately nothing to Spec 4. I was then given a permanent gunner job on a gun truck, a gun Jeep Brutus, where I stayed for a few months. And I was about a month away from getting separated from the Army in Vietnam. I was a 2-year RA. Not a lot of people have heard about that. But I was going to go back to Fort Carson, Colorado, and OKP and all this good stuff as a Spec 4. That did not sit too well with me. I got the news just after that. I got my orders to Fort Carson, and I was up in front of the board for Sergeant 5. Thanks to my platoon sergeant who tutored me very well, the board was a breeze. I passed it. I had 15 guys. I was 5, and I was kind of proud of that. All I had to do was wait for my orders to come through. Because I was basically short, they told me it was going to be a problem getting my orders for Spec 5, and I probably would not receive them. They weren't going to send them on to my next duty station. I didn't know that was all a scam. They were about to hit me up for an extension to my tour, which had some benefits to it. I would spend 60 more days in Vietnam and deroast the Army with no other service. I'd be out of the Army, and that was pretty special to me. I got together with a bunch of other guys from other gun trucks. We talked it over, we weighed the ifs, ands, and buts about it, pros and cons, and Russia was signed up for a 60-day extension. I was right to know that I was being conned by that E7 sergeant in our headquarters building. The day I signed my orders to extend, which added to his popularity with the higher-ups, he reached in his drawer and pulled out an RS-35. I gave him a tongue lashing that no Spec 4 had ever given an E7 before. And he could have wrote me up for insubordination. Instead, he smiled and said, "Welcome to Vietnam for another 16 days, Sergeant." So I took that as a plus. I walked out of there hurt, excited, thankful that I had achieved my goal that I wanted to achieve in the military service. And the next day, I believe it was, as E5, I was assigned to driver Brutus. That was all. Being a driver on Brutus or any crew member was a privilege. Everybody in the company depended on trucks like that for their pure survival. It was a position I had to work for. I learned how to use the radio. I was proficient on the M60 because of some action we got in with the Jeeps. And I was pleased. I felt safe in there. All that armor around you and all that weaponry on top was always a good thing. Then came, before I was given the gun truck Brutus, June 9th rolled around. June 9th was a sad day for us. We were ambushed in company strength by the enemy. They usually hid in their secluded places, firing at us. This day they didn't do that. They charged the world in company formation. All the trucks in the kill zone, tankers in the kill zone, made it out. you know, had bullet holes in the tankers, a couple of them caught fire. But Brutus came up from the rear of the convoy after all the tankers had exited the kill zone, found the enemy on the road or in the ditches nearby, and basically annihilated them. I got a report from the gentleman in the armored column that came up to secure that area. He gave us a count on, he captured 3 guys that were wounded. Gave us a count on the enemy deceased at that time, and I didn't believe it. It was just too many. My sister back home usually watched the Huntley Winter Report, and the war today, Mr. Rickey said, there was a convoy ambush through the Central Highlands. And there were 4 wounded in our convoy, all on a gun truck, a 2nd platoon gun truck, a deuce-and-a-half single-wall armor, and they all survived. One was thrown out of the truck. He was shot in the back after he was unconscious in a ditch. They were recovered by the armored column, and all lived very good civilian lives afterwards. The result of the June 9th ambush was theory for me after that. I am full of theories. I lived this exciting time, but the theory I had was because of the devastation that Brutus brought on the enemy in that June 9th ambush, they were frightened, scared of Brutus, and if that is a term that is not comfortable calling the enemy frightened, because they were an enemy to be reckoned with, they had good leadership, and they were well organized. I would say that they were reluctant to attack Brutus again, thinking that they were going to get devastated like they were on June 9th. So things were rather calm. When I got in Brutus, the situation was still we had sniper fire, still we dealt with mines in the road, and still we were dealing with mortar and rocket attacks on different parts, different convoys that went to different compounds. The gentleman here, a veteran, said he was in one of those compounds that I was familiar with. I did not feel safe in that compound. I felt safer on the outside wire. And that was because the enemy had that place zeroed in very well. I was there one time and 22 rockets came into that base. And there's a picture over there on the wall of one of my buddies standing in a rocket hole, crater, that hit next to my tanker that I was up on watching the fuel drain into a bladder. And I didn't stay there long for some odd reason, but that rocket hit did not touch my tanker, did not do any damage, but it's just an example of the ferocity of the weapons that the enemy had. Anyway, I exited Vietnam. I couldn't hear out of one ear. We had a mine blow up next to Brutus. A V-100 military vehicle was passing us. They had it on the tank line. And 3 guys that were in that all suffered broken backs, all survived. And later in my civilian life, I read a book. And in that book was an account of that situation. I was very surprised to see that it was in there, but I guess it was something that was of noteworthiness, and the MP guy wrote that little story. It was a book of short stories. The guy who lives in Kiel, Wisconsin, I gave him a call and talked to him, and there I found out that all the guys survived that attack. Fast forward to December, I think it was March 2012. I was settled into civilian life, working hard, and My phone rang. The guy on the other end introduced himself to me as John Porter, 359 Transportation Company Vietnam Association historian. And he was calling up guys that he thought might have served in the 359. Of course, I was one of them. They were looking for everybody that had lost over time. We had a very lengthy conversation. I told him that part of my duties was driving tanker, got around the gun jeep with Brutus, and I drove Brutus. He says, well, then you might be interested in the rest of the story after you left. I left November. Thanksgiving night, November 69. Here we are in 2012, and he started telling me about the disasters that had hit Brutus. We have a picture of 14 individuals over there on the board, 14 guys we lost in Vietnam during the war. My mission here in the museum is to create an atmosphere where we can honor their lives and their sacrifice. So, even though the mission here is to preserve military history, I'm all for that. My sub-mission, if you would, was to honor those guys and keep their name on our lips and honor them any chance we get. So he told me about an ambush. My theory was that the enemy was afraid of Brutus. It was a year to the week that I exited Brutus, that the driver took an RPG and the front wheel well and was killed. The truck was destroyed, the two gunners in the back also wounded, and they survived, but Junior Callison was not as lucky. He gave his life for the country and for our mission in Vietnam. The stories do not stop there. He said the guy that built Brutus was a genius, that E4 Wayne Prescott. He earned a Purple Heart, a Bronze Star, and a Silver Star in his devotion to duty while on Brutus. He was very active in a lot of ambush situations. And not only did he build the truck, but he designed it so the gun box itself was held to the truck by 8 bolts. When the truck was destroyed, he simply lifted the truck up, lifted the gun box up with a crane, put another truck under it, put a new crew in it, attached all the electrical stuff to the minigun, and the crew was back on the road again 1 week later. We had some intelligence that the BC, the NVA started calling Brutus the ghost truck, because they destroyed it once and came back the next week. The story goes on to where 4 months later, Brutus was on the road working heavily, a convoy ahead of it. There were multi-convoys on the road, it was 125 miles long. The convoy ahead of it was attacked. It was a sustained ambush. The enemy was gaining confidence, gaining personnel, and gaining weaponry. And they wanted to take out Brutus again. It was a key target. It was a thorn in their side. And on that particular day, Brutus raced ahead to protect the convoy. It was attacked ahead of it. It was a 15-minute gunfight. 6 gun trucks came from other convoys and were in the kill zone, laying down, returning fire on the enemy. For 15 minutes they did that. Most of their ammunition was exhausted. And then the enemy ceased fire. They disappeared back into the jungle. At that time, Brutus' driver was going to turn around when an NVA soldier threw a grenade in the back of the box. The youngest and perhaps the man that had the most to live in that situation saw the grenade, dove on it. It exploded, taking his life, but he saved the life of the other 2 gunners in the box. His name was Larry Dahl. Larry posthumously was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. That was basically the end of the story. A few months later, the truck was given to the South Vietnamese. The 359 left Vietnam. There was plenty of stories that everyone would continue to tell about gun truck Brutus. It was the 400 gun trucks in Vietnam. It most popular. It was the probably most awarded gun truck in Vietnam. We had many Purple Hearts, many Bronze Stars, a handful of Silver Stars, and that one Congressional Medal of Honor. I was updated to all the information that they had about Brutus and its strategies. There were successes too. They continued to protect the convoys, and the convoys were hauling all fuel. 359 was a fuel hauling company. Without us, the helicopters in the Central Highlands would not have flown. The tanks would not have rolled because we supplied them with all their fuel. So the history of the 359 was well seated in the annals of military history. 2014, I walked in here as a nosy veteran. I noticed that all the trucks in here were basically World War II, with one way back in the corner. And that corner was a 5-ton cargo, just like that. And it wasn't a gun truck, it was just a cargo truck. There was a gentleman working on the project right there. Turned out that he was Dave Kirsten, the then president of the museum. And Dave and I started talking. 2016, we presented Brutus to the veteran at a dedication ceremony here. About 200 guys showed up. 6 gun truck crews from different gun trucks all over Vietnam. Our network had grown. Our personnel in the historical department had spread the word, and Brutus was enshrined here, if you could use that word, because of Dave Kirsten. Dave, would you stand up, please? Thank you, David. The generosity of David, the dedication of David, and just the overall talent of David. Built that truck, painted it, put it on display here. I acquired the weapons, and it was ready to go, ready to put on display. We take it down to all 359 reunions on the back of a lowboy semi. I'm getting too old to drive that thing all the way to Chattanooga or Kansas City or whatever. Certainly not to San Antonio, where we were a couple of years ago. At this time, I'd like to have the volunteers here stand up and take a bow, because they all were instrumental in building a Brutus. Not only that, but the tanker, the gun chief, little Brutus, and putting together the displays that basically tell the story of the 359 in Vietnam. Guys, stand up, please. Stu is our third president. He arranged this meeting, this breakfast meeting, and we're all very grateful to him. So I guess that's it. I am very pleased to be here. I am definitely committed to the museum for all they've done for me, for all they've done for the 359, and for all they do in preserving the military veterans' history of this country. Thank you very much.